All right, so there's a report that The Witcher Bloodline is being review bombed by fans of Henry Cavill and fans of the original author Sapkowski. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrect. Speaking of incorrect, that story is incorrect, and we'll explore why. All right, so the article title, The Witcher, Blood Origin, is getting review bombed by Henry Cavill novel fan. And basically, it then goes on to state that on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 38% critic score and 8% audience score. That might have changed a little bit. We'll take a look at that later. Is this out of being current? It says, many reviewers cite the dialogue and the lack of Henry Cavill, who stars as Geralt of Rivia in The Witcher, as the reason for the low score. However, other fans have criticized the series as a poor adaptation of author, and again, pronunciation incorrect, Andrzej Sapkowski's The Witcher novels. If you jump over to Rotten Tomatoes to see what the actual numbers and issues are, it looks like it's still sitting at that atrocious 38% bought critics, but 8% audience score, and that's on over 2,000 audience scores. So we scroll down a little bit here, and we get through all the paid critic reviews. We get into audience reviews for The Witcher, and when we start to look at them, we see the show is so bad it's actually sad. It looks like a 2000 CW show. Wow, I thought The Witcher Season 2 was bad. It has nothing to do with The Witcher except the name. The story is so confusing that until now, I didn't know what it was about. If you ever wondered what someone's bad fan fiction would look like on a decent budget, look no further. I'm not sure what you expect when the writers deviate from the original content so far. Poor action movie. Show is trying to use some characters from the Witcher world, but it looks funny with a lot of cliches. Story was completely butchered, and the explanation of the lore was lackluster. The acting was comical, especially the special effects. So I'm not going to go into reading every single one of these more and more. It seems to be a pretty good sampling. It does actually seem to support the original claim of fans being upset about it not following works of the original author. Henry Cavill is not mentioned in there whatsoever. Okay, and of course the argument can be made, oh, well, if you went back to the beginning, then you would see Henry Cavill name, but that's not the point. The point is that the original is a clickbait grabbing title, right? And so Henry Cavill is in the news. His departure was a big deal, and so we'll tie it to that to get the clicks. And then saying that it didn't follow the books is an interesting one, because the writers of the show, to their credit, did reveal one thing about that before the show even began. So there was an article just over about a week ago that basically explained what the genesis of this spin-off was, corporate speak, because of course the genesis was The Witcher made a lot of money. Let's make something else to make more money. However, here's what they said. After discovering a plot hole while working on the flagship series. Yeah. Of course, they found a plot hole. Didn't identify what that plot hole was. They found one. The writer-producer, Declan DeBarra, pitched an idea for a prequel, The Witcher Blood Origin, which Netflix executive Kelly Luganbiel, sorry, pronounced wrong, said unlocked, quote, a whole world of additional stories, unquote. Should have been, quote, meant we could make a bunch of stuff and hopefully make money off of it, unquote. Nonetheless, the literary source material won't offer many plot clues for the new series, though. This executive added that the writer based the narrative on, quote, a few lines in the books, unquote. So there you have it. They, first of all, didn't have source material, I guess, in their defense. And or they cherry-picked one or two lines. So when you are looking at these reviews and seeing that people were questioning somewhat the books, you realize there was no real source material to go on to. So ultimate question, of course, being, what is this really all about? All right, so what's really going on, and we've seen this before, we're going to probably see it again and again and again, is you have very, very good writers that create very, very good works, okay? So obviously, we have Sapkowski in this aspect. We had George R.R. Martin in Game of Thrones. We had Isaac Asimov in Foundation. That people take and adapt their works. And what happens, and we've seen it, and we're going to see it more, is that when they follow the works as accurately as they can, within a small margin of error, which would be like The Witcher Season 1, which would be Game of Thrones Season at least 1 through 6, partially 7, it's great because the source material is great because those writers are great. As soon as these new young writers, or sometimes not even young, but just these new Hollywood writers, go off and do their own thing, trash. And it is trash for one simple reason: these are bad writers. And it's almost a double strike, because it's one thing to be a bad writer when you're having to create a world from scratch. It is another thing when you are given a well-defined, interesting, and successful world to, quote, play in, unquote, and that takes an extra something, because invariably happens, and what we see time and time again, is these writers view the existing lore and canon as a limitation as opposed to a guidepost. They view that because they're not very good writers. Covered it kind of before, or at least touched on it. Humans thrive under restraint and adversity. So if you are given something, or you're trying to write something, and you have a very narrow set of rules and guidelines, this is where the creative people, the talented people, the interesting people thrive and shine. Because it takes no creativity, no talent, and no inspiration to say, all right, I don't like those restraints, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And you see the end product. And you even saw it in those reviews, even though it was a small sampling of the over 2,000 from Rotten Tomatoes. They weren't necessarily in that round going off on, oh, Cavill's not in it, or, oh, they deviated from the source material. There is no source material. Technically, yes, there is not a source material from that time frame, 1,200 years in the future, and the writers will use that as justification. But there is source material of the world that has been created, the canon and the lore. And then when you violate that simply because you're a bad writer, the end result is 8% of the audience giving a hoot about your hot steaming pile of garbage. So there you go. Bit of a clickbait title on the original article, which I get, I understand in this environment, that's how you do it. But the bigger picture is, and the bottom line is, we just have very, very bad writers, unable to work within the confines of existing lore, going out and doing their own thing and failing miserably. That's my take on things. What's yours? Please let me know.